Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a tier list review kind of situation. Hoodie Vegas in the building. You already know. Really quick, if you want to pick yourself up a hoodie, like Hoodie Vegas, all you got to do is visit the link in my description, trepublic.com, where you can search by typing in the words Vegas World INC, and you can see what I have listed there. Obviously, in some places it's warm. You don't need a hoodie. We have t-shirts. But if you want a hoodie, like Hoodie Vegas, get one. All right, let's get into it. Enough with the shenanigans. Subscribe to the channel. You know what I mean? All that good stuff. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. Now, if you don't know, if you've never seen me do one of these, this is a tier list. This is where previously in the past I've ranked albums in MC's catalog, basically, or rapper, whatever you want to say. And excuse me, I go through the whole catalog, right? Go back and listen, not only to maybe albums I never heard in their catalog, if that's the case, but also albums that maybe I needed a refresher because I hadn't heard it in a while. I've done Snoop Dogg, Eminem, who else? Ghostface, Jay-Z, and Nas together, and Common. I haven't done one in a while, but I felt like coming off the Wu-Tang series had me thinking about Method Man's catalog, and there was a lot of there's always conversation about his debut to Cal and stuff like that. And I was just thinking about Red and Meth and like, wow, these were two of the hottest MCs in the game at one point. Combined, it seemed like magic. They were even doper together. But somewhere along the lines, things kind of changed, So this is not to bash their careers, because it's not. Or who they are as men, social media, because that's what y'all like to do. This is more so as a fan, how I feel about two artists that I genuinely enjoyed. At one point, Redman was my favorite rapper at the time, like hands down. He was my favorite rapper. And as you'll learn, that changed. One thing I want to do is point out some observations before I start ranking them. If you go back and listen to both catalogs, you can see a shift in tone and presentation when it comes to their albums. The beats, the multiple guest features that tend to flood their albums to this day. Just a real change. And also, like, with the production, right? One thing I thought about going through their catalogs, and this is true for Redman and Method Man, the minute they started getting like party hits, they kind of chased that for a while into their later albums. And some songs are better than others, but I think it held them back because they were always looking for that hit again. And I'm not talking about records like How High. I'm talking about, like the Rock Wild, right? Red and Meth did kind of the same thing. And the other thread that you can see by just listening to their catalog straight through is the change in production. Not only Redman, having less Eric Sermon production and Method Man having less RZA production, but just I'm talking about the production of the time, right? It kind of informs you of what music like hip hop, how it changed over time and what was the sound, like A lot of the early stuff, obviously, I liked because I was younger and it had an impression on me with those beats. But then you hear those changes as you start to listen, and there's just certain eras of beats that I'm just like, nah, this wasn't a good era. Mostly like early 2000s for these types of artists. Some of those beats, man, some of it wasn't good. Even the whole no sample era, some were able to pull it off real well, others weren't. So without further ado, let's get into it. I just wanted to give you that context. Feel free, if you bought all these albums and listened to them yourself, you know them, cool. Comment in the comment section below how you feel about them. If you haven't heard some of these albums, go back and listen. It's worth a listen if you ask me. Now, when I do these tier lists, I don't do a bunch of like side projects and soundtracks and blah blah blah. I try to keep it to what is Method Man's solo albums. What are Method Man's solo albums? What are Redman's solo albums? And the two albums they did together as Method Man and Redman. So let's get into it. So we are going to try to start in order of release for Redman and Method Man. So let's just start with Redman. What the album? This album, I won't call it a classic. There's some classic records on there for sure. I won't call it a classic, but I will say it's definitely one of his best. I think this is Indo. And oh, pardon me, I didn't even tell y'all the categories, okay? So there's the categories, as you can see. Let me tell you why. Obviously, How High is classic, best of the best. Indo is great album. It's a great album. It's not, I can't call it a classic, but, and I wouldn't be mad if someone did, but Indo means great. Mid means mid. Casual, it's good, it's cool, it's not terrible, but it's mid. Outdo. You know what I'm saying? There's Indo, and then there's Outdo. Outdo ain't good, right? Outdo means it's bad. It's not good. Next. And lastly, How Sick. Now, obviously, I'm playing off the lyrics from How High. How Sick means this is garbage. This is trash of the highest form. This is seeds in your weed. This is bad weed. Okay? You got it. So, Redman debut What the Album is Indo. To Cal, highly anticipated at the time. There was no way this album was going to fail, but it was just mid. It just was. And mid is not a bad place to be in. It's not terrible, but it's not that good. A lot of that had to do with, ironically, if you ask me, productions and songs that just didn't hit as hard as records like Bring the Pain that were on there. So it's mid, but it's cool. Method Man's To Cal, what is this? 2000, what? Outdo. Okay? Outdo. This Outdo, y'all. Well, no. Let me take that back. To Cal, 2000 is mid. When it dropped, I called it Outdo. It just was another disappointing album to me based off of anticipation. But I will say, going back, there's a lot more on there that I like than I thought I did. And I think it's not an album I would just pop in and press play and be like, yo, Method Man came back. No. It was too many skits, and that's a running theme for Method Man for a while. Way too many skits. A couple of songs that could have just went. Way too many guest features. That's another theme for Method Man. And it has a Donald Trump skit, and it's him. Rappers thought differently about Donald Trump back in the days. Do your research. All right, so that's that for Takao 2000. Redman, where's your second album? There's a Dark Side. This is Indo. This is Indo. Redman may not like it, but I love it. I think with what the album, he did the whole P-Funk thing. He kind of said it more than the production really represented it. It did, but There's a Dark Side is like dirty, like funk. It's a real dark album, obviously. And it just sounds dope. Like it feels dark when you hear it. The beats, you know what I'm saying? The funk is funky or whatever. But nevertheless, this is one of Redman's best albums. Like, hands down, he was on a streak. Let's just say that. Method Man was on a streak also. Mid streak. Let's go to what is undoubtedly, in my opinion, Method Man's greatest piece of work. You already know. There was What the Album, There's a Dark Side, and then there was Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters was an album that I just did not anticipate being as good as it was. I didn't know what to expect from Redman on his third album. I was pleasantly surprised. The album cover is just dope. It's just a dope album cover. It's just crazy. Redman typically has really dope album covers. But you want to talk about from hits to dope records to bars to beats to skits that work. He had a lot of skits too, but they were more memorable. So yeah, there's not much to say about this, but this joint is how high. So high that I could kiss the sky, for sure. Now let's get into Redman and Method Man's debut together, Blackout. This is Indo. Everything about this first project is what you expected from an album featuring Redman and Method Man. Some records are just completely so dope that it's not funny. We know the Rockwilder, but there's so many records on here that just hit so it's one of those things where, like I said, with Takao, right? There was anticipation, there was expectations, and they weren't met. So as a result, most people don't really care for it. A Redman and Method Man album was like a dream at this point. You heard how high, the original and the remix. You heard all these other records. They just were perfect together. So an album, you're like, it's gotta be fire. And it was. It really was. So the first Blackout to me is definitely Indo. Can't call it a classic because with how dope Redman and Method Man are together, I just feel like there needed to be more than, both of them having dope verses, a hook and a beat, right? They needed more concepts, especially at that time where that was a thing for the most part. But no, that's Indo for sure. Now let's get into the dark times. Takao Zero. How sick. How sick that this is dog shit. Okay? This is not a good album from Method Man. Takao Zero, the prequel, from the cover, which I get it, whatever, baby, okay. But not only did it feature like a couple of joints that just weren't good beat-wise, but it wasn't enough Method Man. And it was too many songs and too many skits that just didn't serve a purpose. I'm pretty sure he did them with purpose, but as a listener, it was just like, yo, this isn't good. Right? And this is a theme for Method Man going forward. and will become one for Redman too. As much as I like Street Life, he's probably the best of the people or the artists that Method Man features on his albums. But it's just too many. He just features him and others too many times, and you don't really get Method Man, because when you get Method Man over a Shaolin type beat, RZA type beat, or you just get him by himself on a track where the beat is dope, it's the Method Man we know and love. But because every song he's sharing the spotlight with someone else, I mean, I'd rather him just bring the woo on every track than if that's the case. But I get it, cats have their stable of MCs who may be on their imprint and they're trying to push and help. I get it. But in a lot of ways, I just don't want to hear it on a Method Man album. Put out a compilation. To Cal Zero, how sick, for sure. Redman, Docs the Name. Docs the Name was mid for me. And it used to be out though. Because of coming off of Muddy Waters, I expected not How High, but at least Indo. And what I got was something where it was like, Redman had a couple of hits, like club hits, not just dope songs, club hits. And his initial single turned me off, right? But when you go back and listen to Docs the Name, there's a lot of heat on there, a lot. And it took me going back to say, oh, wait a minute, I think I kind of like this album more than I thought. I didn't like it as much as Muddy Waters or his other two, but it wasn't bad, so it was mid. Let's go back to, now I don't know which came first, so we're just gonna go to Method Man and Redman Blackout 2. This is out though. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened from Indo to out though. Running in and out, Joe. I mean, I don't know what happened. Now, I floated somewhere between mid and out though with this album. But then I realized listening to it, the songs that are dope on here are crazy. They're crazy, right? Some of their best music. But it's too many songs. And too many songs that are just, let's just do the thing. That, like, it got to a point where Red and Method Man together, because of their film, I like that movie though, How High. Let me not say their film, because of their celebrity outside of being MCs, they became more like characters, right? Because the acting had them popping up like the new Cheech and Chong, which isn't bad and which wasn't untrue in some regards, but they became more like characters instead of these, MCs who were dangerous to me. And I think that version of them is represented on this Blackout 2 album, but just not enough, right? It just felt like, we need another hit, we need another rock wow. So it just didn't do anything for me. Going back to it, honestly, dropped it lower. I used to have it at mid, and it dropped it to out though, and I was just like, yeah, this was probably the beginning of the end in a lot of ways. Because it was. Redman Malpractice. How sick. This album was like a funeral for me as a Redman fan. It was like telling me, hey yo, that run he had, it's over. That's what this album signaled. And a lot, again, had to do with the success of Redman and Method Man as a duo beyond hip hop. It was like Redman and Method Man started chasing hits. With these two albums in particular, To Cal Zero and Malpractice. And it was these hits that were like, I could hear them, like a song like Let's Get Dirty. I could hear in a stadium and, spring break and kids going crazy over it. But it's not the Redman I knew. It's not. And it just wasn't good, man. And with this album, I tried back then. I bought that joint. I saw the cover. I was like, oh, the joint dope. Cover looked dope. He just always got dope. I can't wait. Redman's back. Press play, and it was just like, where'd all the funk go? I like all that P-Funk stuff and dirty sounding beats. I get it. You're celebrities now. It just didn't do it for me, y'all. So if you like Malpractice, please tell me why. Because even going back, I didn't feel anything was different. I felt bad about it. Method Man 421, the day after, is Endo. Method Man moving up in the world. This album surprised me because, don't get me wrong, all those features are still there like before. But I felt like Method Man himself sound rejuvenated as an MC, right? Like he was getting back on the bike, like fell off the bike a little bit. Let me get back on track. And I felt like this was a better album. Obviously, is it better than Tikal? Well, it's difficult to compare the two because when you look at Tikal, it was just a disappointment more than it was a whack album. 421 was a surprise, but I felt like it was more focused. Tikal wasn't really focused. It was a collection of songs. And some could say, well, shit, all of this is a collection of songs. But I think with Method Man, I felt like this was a better output as far as a body of work for him. Again, feature heavy, and that's just going to be Method Man albums going forward because all of them are like that. Same thing with Redman. Feature heavy, and feature heavy not with the Woo, even though they appear, but with his crew, Bar. But I felt like it was a good album. Am I going to say, I'm not going to debate whether Tikal is better than this album. How could you have Tikal? It's Tikal. Tikal wasn't that great to me. But I will say, if you switch them around, I wouldn't be mad. Or if you put them in the same categories, whether you put them both mid or both, I wouldn't put Tikal Endo. I wouldn't be mad at your choice. But for me, when I heard this album, I was like, this is one of the better Method Man projects. It really is. It's gonna get rough, y'all. Red Gone Wild. I know some people like, what Redman album is that? It's actually mid. Which is a good thing because when Malpractice came out, I was like, it is over. Gotta be. When Tikal Zero came out, I was like, it is over. But Red Gone Wild was not a bad album. It had some joints on there, but I feel like it was plagued with features from Gilla House, y'all, and people I just didn't want to hear from. And not because they were just terrible MCs, they just didn't really do anything, and they took away bars from why I came there, which is Redman. So, well, it applies to both. So Red Gone Wild has some joints on it for sure, but then there's just other joints where you skip a lot because we're in the skipping era of these two, which is so amazing because the songs they do have that are crazy, they're crazy, right? They remind you of Redman can still spit, Method Man can still spit. So now we're getting into Method Man's The Meth Lab series. The Meth Lab 1 is out though. Yeah, man. I'll say this. The Meth Lab album covers, crazy. Some of the best album covers I ever seen. Especially for Method Man, the upside down W. This one's glass. You'll see the others. But I was disappointed in this, man. I was like, damn, it's the Meth Lab. Got the dope cover. A couple of songs I heard were good, but again, plagued by skits and features from cats you don't want to hear because you just want Method Man to be back in the game. And I'll say this, I think, if I remember correctly, there's almost 10 years between Method Man's 421, I believe, between that album and Meth Lab. Let me just look real quick. I think it's about 10 years almost between those two albums. So Method Man coming back with a solo was like, I'm glad he's back. But he's not back because he brought his boys. Again, we want to hear from him, but we don't want to hear from him on every track, man. Every track. You know what I'm saying? Like the dude Hands Free. Like I said, Street Life is dope, and the dude Hands Free, he's not bad at all. But he's hands on with every Method Man album. And it's like, come on, man, can we just get a little more Method Man? It's fine. Do a posse cut with them. Have them do a hook. You know, do a record with him. But it's just like, it's a million songs on these projects. And the songs that feature Method Man only are like let's put it like this. There's 27 songs on some of these albums from Method Man. And you can count on one hand how many just feature him alone. That's crazy. Well, I won't say 27 songs. 27 tracks. But most of it is skits. But still, you know, even if it's 15 tracks and you got Method Man doing about 4 by himself or 3 and something, just not good. Out though. For Redman, Reggie. Now, Reggie is mid. Reggie is mid. Wait, am I not remember that? No, Reggie's not mid. Reggie is out though. Reggie is out though. Now Reggie got some joints on it, but again, Reggie is plagued with features from cats you do not want to hear from. Now don't get me wrong, all this talk about features from cats, it's some really dope features on there, right? Ray and Ghost appear on some joints. Method Man and Redman both appear on some of these later projects together. But it's their crews who don't really do much for me personally. And they are featured on a number of songs where once you finally get a song of Redman or Method Man by themselves, you're like, finally. And then the next song, you got to deal with more features. So Reggie was another one of those albums that felt like old Method Man, right? Method Man. Old Redman battling with successful celebrity character Redman. And you're just going to keep getting these shifts between what song, who's going to appear on what song, you know? Is it going to be that Redman that I love from back in the days, or is it going to be this new one that just won't give us what we want, right? We don't want the character. We want Philly Blunt, How to Roll a Blunt, Superman Lover series. Now don't get it twisted. He continued that series throughout his albums, but I think it peaked at Muddy Waters as far as the storytelling, the story itself, and the production. Reggie wasn't that good. The Meth Lab 2, it has a different name, but I'm gonna just call it 2. This version is also out though. Same thing as the first Method. Now, I'm not calling these House Sick because I don't feel like either one of these projects are as bad as Tikal Zero, the prequel. But they're not good, right? And the second Meth Lab, I was really encouraged by the songs I heard because they were dope. But again, too many tracks, too many skits, too many features, not enough Method Man. Method Man in some cases verses aren't that great all the time. Um, and I expected it to be a little bit better, but it just wasn't. And honestly, Meth Lab 2 would have been mid when it came out to me. But when I went back and listened after a while, because you think you remember an album sounding better or worse till you go back and say, yeah, I don't like this at all, and I don't want to hear it again. So I don't feel like it's the worst, but it's definitely out though. Now we're down to their final two releases. For Redman, it was an album called Mudface, which wasn't that bad. It was mid. It was cool. It was what it was, a little less songs, which I enjoyed. Well, I'll say that loosely. Some of the songs on here I like, that I do like, I really like. The features are there, but I think they're starting to wear a little thin, So it was cool. It just wasn't the heyday. It wasn't Indo everything is mid, living in that mid range. And lastly, the last version of Meth Lab, I believe this is called Rehab or something like that. I don't know. This is called a Meth Lab. This is Indo. I feel like Method Man got it right this time. There's more Method Man. His bars are more focused. This is coming off of him doing some crazy features on, like with Conway and all of that. Like it, you get it from this album. If you heard his verse with Conway and everybody else he was featured with in recent years, and you like, yo, Method's back. It's the album for you, man. Almost teared up when I heard it, because I was like, it may not be, the classic we expected when Takao was on the horizon. But this late in his career, it's probably where he should be. The features are there, but I tell you what, it makes a big difference when the track listing is much more shorter, focused, and you get more Method Man, and the verses he do have on here are crazy. Dope. It's not How High. How High is just classic. It's not classic material, but it's great. It's great to me. So that's my tier list. As you can see, there's a through line here, right? That you can see. Redman and Method Man both have albums that are the worst in their catalog, that you could comfortably call garbage. Garbage doesn't mean every single song on the album is trash. That's not true. It just means that the majority of it just isn't good. When it comes to Out though, right? Same thing. Not really good, but not their worst. But if you had to skip them, I'd say skip them. Mid is, I think some people will either rate these albums mid or higher, but they're not bad. They're actually good for the most part. Indo, as you can see, the albums that are there, these are albums that are great. They're great for what they are, for the time they were released, sonically and everything. And standing alone at How High is Muddy Waters, because it is the best Redman album in my opinion, and it's just better put together than everything below it. Excuse me. I think Method Man got pretty close with his last album. I think if the formula of the features backed down a little bit and the track listing remained slim, right? Not 6 records, but not 27 either. I think he can put out a joint, with the right production and the right bars and features, that people would say, yo, I can't believe it. Meth probably possibly put out a classic today. One thing when you compare the two artists and their careers through these albums is Method Man is best when he's featured. And I know that sounds terrible to say, but think about it. Think about Meth and what you loved about him in the Woo. Records like The What with Biggie. His albums and some of his hits with Redman. He is best being featured. Can he hold down a song by himself? Of course. He's done it. He's got dope records that are just him. But can he do it for a whole album? Well, if you do like I did and you go through the catalog, you would say no. His albums are feature heavy from day one. And none of the attempts at concepts stick with you. Unlike Redman, who he's concepts galore. He's storytelling. He's all these different things. He's all these different flows and things like that. That's why Muddy Waters stands above any Method Man album, in my opinion, because even with Redman having features, he's always the standout. He always is. Whereas Method Man can sometimes rhyme down to the level of who he's standing next to. When it's him with the Clan, it's Method Man, you know. When it's him with somebody who's a top tier MC like a Biggie, it's the Method Man, you know. When it's him with Redman, same thing. But when it's him with Street Life sometimes it's there too. But you know, all the other cats that he frequently put on his albums, I don't say to myself, Redman had the best verse. Sometimes he don't. Sometimes Street Life has the best verse. So again, not everything they released is complete garbage, but considering their longevity in this hip hop thing for 50 years of hip hop, it's a pretty solid catalog between the two, where there are more albums that are good than not. So there you have it. What do you feel about some of these albums? How would you rank them? You leave your comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, press the like button. If you loved it, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, Hip Hop Now Podcast. And also know that this podcast is also available via audio only on your favorite podcasting app. All you got to do is search for Hip Hop Now Podcast and hit subscribe. Don't forget to review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do that. All right. Until next time, y'all. I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.